Hello! Welcome, everyone. This is so exciting. Thank you for coming. Thank you so much to my panelists who are here today. We are going to be discussing the book Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden, if you couldn't tell by our thumbnail cover.
Beautiful thumbnail.
Thank you. Oh man. I thought it'd be fun to make us all geisha for today.
As long as I don't have to live that life, I'm good.
I just love it so much.
Just for today. Yeah. Never again. Oh. I feel like it was kind of, hi Penny, glamorized in a sense, maybe, for the book. I mean, obviously their lives are horrible, but there's a certain glamour that Chiyo obviously feels when she looks at a geisha. Like Hatsumo, she was just, she thought Hatsumo was so glamorous and beautiful. Anyways, we'll get into that. First, I wanted to start off by saying, again, thank you to everybody who's up here chatting and everybody who was in the Voxer chat with us. Such a great discussion. We had some controversy, which is always fun. I love it.
Stir in the pot.
Yes, stir the pie. I love it. So would you guys like to introduce yourselves and your channels, and also we'll just have a little icebreaker question. What was your experience with this story previously? Have you seen the movie before? Have you read the book before, etc.? Let's start with Stephanie.
My name is Stephanie. My channel is Miss Richards Reads, and this was my first experience. I've never read the book, and I'd heard about it, but I'd never read the movie. Seen the movie either. So I was a complete newbie. And it's Michi.
Oh, hello. My name is Michelle, or Heart of Michi. That is my channel. My experience with this story is, well, I watched it quite a few times, like growing up. Like it came out like right around the time I was in high school, so I watched it a lot. It was one of my favorite movies in high school, and I had always planned to read the book and just never did. So this was my first time actually reading the book, not just watching the movie. So
exciting.
Hi, I'm Tiffany. My channel is Beautiful Minutia, and I had zero really experience with this at all. I had never seen the movie. I remember seeing the previews when it came out and being like, wow, that looks really good. And then I never watched it, and I hadn't read the book or anything either. I think I had some assumptions of what a geisha was, and this book kind of dispelled some of those assumptions. But yeah, I didn't really have much knowledge of Japanese history or this time period at all either. So
I think that was an experience that a lot of people had going into it. At first was like, oh, I kind of thought geisha was, I didn't realize it was like an artist, you know, when you first go in.
I pretty much just thought they were like high-end prostitutes. That's pretty much what I thought they were.
Exactly. So we did learn something. There has been some controversy over the book over certain things, like some of the sexual material and stuff like that. And I wanted to thank actually some commenters on my wrap-up video where I talked about Memoirs of a Geisha a little bit. Katya, Read, Write, Create, and Sarah As You Wish both told me that there's a memoir out by one of the geisha that Arthur Golden actually interviewed. So I'll put the title of that in the chat. I should have done that already, but I totally forgot. So anyways, I'm totally gonna read that. That sounds so interesting.
I think there's another one out too. The one I think you're talking about is Geisha Life, which is the geisha that he interviewed. Yeah. But then there's another one out by a different geisha called like Autobiography of a Geisha, and her experience was not as high end as the geisha that Arthur Golden interviewed. So her experience was a lot different than the other geisha. So there's kind of a wide spectrum there. I haven't read either of them, but I'm going to.
And we're sort of in like a non-spoilery section of this book, but there's definitely like you can see some perspective of how horrible it could get,
Yes.
trying to be a geisha, being a failed geisha. But like most of what we get is Chio's experience, which Sayori's experience, which is probably more considered high end. So, all right, we have some great comments. Yes, the writing style.
The writing style.
Totally
Yes.
agree, Bruno.
That was one of my favorite elements, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I wanted to ask you guys, what are some of your non-spoilery favorite things about the book? And obviously, writing style is way up there for some of us. Yeah. Like there was a lot. We talked about metaphors in the Voxer chat a little bit. There were some great metaphors in there, and obviously Hatsumo always had a turn of phrase with her insults that were so harsh, but also kind of like burn. So, yeah.
Yeah,
So
Hatsumo was the queen of passive-aggressive comments.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
Sure. She was the mean girl.
Yes, she was. She was the Regina George
Yep.
of Memoirs of a Geisha.
I wonder if she wore pink kimonos on Wednesdays.
Oh my gosh. Only pink kimonos.
Yes.
Same, Chelsea. That's exactly how I feel.
Yay, that's exciting. Chelsea has an awesome channel too, so everybody should go check out Chelsea's channel. And all of the channels of the ladies up here are linked in the description below, so please check them out. They're awesome.
Yeah, I think the writing was just very vivid. Yes, like Chelsea said, the descriptions were really lovely. So it was easy to visualize everything and picture it as you're going through.
That's so true. You could really picture some of the kimonos, like the scenes on the kimono and the way he would describe them. It's like art. It's just art.
Yes.
I loved the geisha training too. Like when they would talk about like how she had to learn an instrument, the dances she had to learn, and then some of the like the actual scene where she does like the dance and all that stuff. Like I thought that was not only fascinating, but the imagery of that made it like so easy to picture that in my head too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I love how like when they were talking about the dancing, it was not just like the fact that she was dancing, but like the purpose behind each move and what she had to do like with her face during these dance moves. Like I can't look at people while I'm doing this because I'm supposed to represent this emotion. I thought that was really a really cool touch and made you like kind of imagine what it would be like to be the dancer in that situation, which I feel like can be difficult to accomplish as a writer, to get that kind of like you're in that perspective so well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really true. He had enough distant. Yeah, he would give you almost like a distant view through her perspective sometimes. That's a writery thing to notice. Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think my favorite thing was more even than the prose, the actual atmospheric nature of the story. I thought that was actually my favorite part. I don't know, that or the characters themselves. Like, Sayori's character was just really well done. And even the side characters are really well done and have their own little mini arcs a lot of times. So I really appreciated that. Made it more like complex and interesting to read.
Yeah, they're very nuanced, which I really liked.
Yeah, and I was listening to, I think it was Christy's voice message in the Voxer thing, about how all the characters were kind of gray and not really, who was it that said that? Not all the voices are like mixed up in my head.
That may have been me.
Okay, sorry. I think it was her. I listened to so many messages like right before coming in here that I can't distinguish whose voice was whose. Someone said it, and yes, they are very gray, and I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that is so true. You can't completely identify with most of them because it's like, oh, that wasn't nice. But you can also like still identify with a lot of it because it's kind of realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, the way he wrote the characters, it was easy to see why they did the things they did, even if you didn't agree with it.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Their motivation.
Absolutely. They're all really memorable
Definitely.
characters. I feel like I will remember them forever. Like,
Yes.
I'm so curious what you guys will all think of the movie when we are watching it after, like right after reading the book. And I don't remember if I've ever watched the movie like immediately after reading the book either. Should be interesting. Because obviously they can't get quite to the level of nuance and stuff.
Yeah.
So, and they combine some things. But like also the atmosphere that Michi mentioned is still, I think, so prevalent in the movie. It's like this whole book, like it's not very often that I can actually sit down and just read a whole book without audiobook accompaniment. And part of it's because I've read it before, but it's so engaging and it really just pulls you in so well. I think like the detail you guys mentioned is probably part of it, and wanting to understand the characters, and like I naturally want to empathize with characters as I'm reading about them and about their lives. So that takes some effort in certain cases. So hi Noah.
Hello.
I know.
Yes, so Berna said she studied Japanese architecture for
That is
masters.
so
in
cool.
masters. That is so awesome.
Yes.
I'm sure you would think about it a lot while reading this.
Yeah.
I wonder, did you study in like Guion architecture? I'm so interested in the different districts that Arthur Golden kept mentioning in the book because
Yeah.
they seem really different. So I'm pointing about simplicity in residential houses and glamour on others. Yes. Like the fishing village in the beginning versus Guion is like really different versus America at the end. It's like
And even the different tea houses, they were described
Yeah.
differently as well.
yes. Yes. Pagoda, yes. Any more thoughts on favorite things? Favorite things. No? Okay. All right, cool. Whenever I hear that phrase, I can't help singing Sound of Music.
These
Yes.
are just two of my favorite things.
Exactly. So we had some controversy in the Voxer chat, and it was wonderful. I loved it.
Yes.
So this is still sort of non-spoilery. We can sort of talk about some of our spoilery thoughts after this. So if you haven't read it before, this question's still okay. But after this, we'll be getting into spoilery sections. So, some of your least favorite things about the book. Can you elaborate on that without spoilers?
I think, well, first of all, it was kind of the point, but I didn't love the sexual content in this book. You're not supposed to, but like
Yeah.
there were scenes that I was just like, oh.
They were
So,
really uncomfortable.
yes, and they're supposed to be. So I'm not supposed to like it, but I'm just throwing that out there. That was something I didn't love. And then also to get into a non-spoilery element of the ending that I didn't like. I feel like, and we've discussed this at length in our Voxer, I feel like some of the characters, I think the reason I didn't like the ending is some of the characters made decisions and choices that seemed at odds with what their character had been throughout the book. So that was something I didn't like about the ending. That's not spoilery.
Little plot takeover there. Which is like so interesting because most of this book seems like so character. Well, does it seem character driven? Michi, would you say it's
Yeah.
okay, character
One
driven.
100% a character-driven story. Like the plot is
Okay.
almost like non-existent for most of the book. There's not really
Yeah.
like major plot points compared to like, if you compare it to like Red Rising, like the plot differences are massive. Like a lot happens in Red Rising. Almost nothing like actually happens in Memoirs of a Geisha.
Yeah.
It's more about like the characters.
Daily life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a good point. There's like certain there's certain, I guess, relationships that create tension, but that's sort of different from plot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And yes, exactly. They really did feel so real.
Totally agree.
They pretty much that's what defined the plot was the character dynamics.
Yeah.
If there hadn't been like if Hatsumo had been at all different, the plot might have looked really different.
Mhm.
Yeah. I guess one thing that I don't like, and I guess it had to happen, is, poor Pumpkin. I feel like her whole like character arc is really depressing, like more
Yeah.
so than any
Yeah.
other character.
She
I just
didn't
wanna,
really
like-
get a break.
Yes, I just want to like give her a
No.
hug.
Because she's so sweet
No one else
in
was
the
going
beginning.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was. She was like genuinely kind to Sayori, and then, everything happened to her.
We were talking about high class and low class geisha. That's something
Yeah.
that's really exemplified by Sayori versus Pumpkin.
Yes.
For
yes,
sure.
exactly.
And we'll actually talk about some of the female relationships in this book because they are really interesting. It really defines the book in a lot of ways is the female relationships.
Mm.
Oh, interesting.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like they do have a great respect for natural forces. Like even in the metaphors that were used and stuff like that, and the scenes on the kimonos that we talked about, a lot of them were just very much natural. The dancing, like it, yeah, great respect for natural forces.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of the Zodiac too, once we get into that section.
Yes.
Yes. Actually, so maybe we should jump into that, like the non-spoilery or the spoilery section, and we can jump into so okay, everybody here prepared a little thing to talk about except for me. So thank you guys.
You're leading it, so
Yeah,
I-
you prepared the whole conversation. You had
Yeah.
your little, like questions set up. Don't lie to us. Come on.
Thanks, guys. You're sweet. I really appreciate you guys doing a little bit of research to like inform us. So, okay, where's my Zodiac question? Okay, here we go. So this is going to be Tiffany's little section that she researched. I didn't
and
see
this
the
is
banners ahead.
non-spoilery. Actually, this is not.
Oh,
does not have any
nice.
spoilers in it. So
Perfect.
that kind of works out, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, so we were thinking because the Zodiac plays a humongous part in this story. There's like an almanac that the geishas reference very frequently before they make decisions to see if it's an auspicious date and like all of those kinds of things. So it was interesting because this is the Japanese Zodiac, so I was kind of wondering how does that differ from the Chinese Zodiac?
Mm.
Am I still here? It just like blinked.
Oh.
Your face is frozen, but I hear you.
I don't...
We can still hear you. Can you hear us?
Okay.
Oh, now we
I
can't.
just moved my phone a little bit.
Uh-oh.
Oh, maybe we should come back to Tiffany.
Oh no.
Okay, can you hear me now? Is it working now?
Yes.
Yes.
Or is it still not working? Okay. I moved my phone a little bit, so hopefully that helped the signal. I don't know. We'll find out. But anyways, I was saying that I was wondering what the difference between the Chinese and Japanese Zodiac are, and then how that is then different from like our traditional Zodiac, that like the Western Zodiac that a lot of people follow in the United States. So, a main difference is that it's a 12-year cycle rather than a 12-month cycle. So the star signs that we have in the United States are based different months. And both Chinese and Japanese Zodiac are 12 years. So each it's the year of whatever. And the Japanese Zodiac is actually completely based off of the Chinese Zodiac. And the only real difference is that the last animal in the Chinese Zodiac is the pig, but it's the boar in Japan. That's like the only difference in terms of the zodiac signs. So I thought it'd be kind of interesting to look up kind of the differences, like kind of what Chio, they mention that she was born in the year of the rat. And when she comes to her, what's it called? Is it Okia, where the house, the geisha house? They're like, oh, we don't need another rat, basically. We don't need another year of the rat. And then they also mention how she has water in her. So in addition to those 12-year cycles, there are also 5 elements. So there's elements of fire, earth, water, and wood. So when it talks about Chio having water in her, it's actually referring to her zodiac sign, which I didn't realize when I was reading the book, not until
I thought it was her eyes
afterwards.
I
did too. I did too. And she talked about how her mother had water in her. So they were both water signs in addition to their zodiac signs. So the water in her basically means that she's compelled to form emotional bonds. That's like a thing of like water signs. And then she's the year of the rat, which means she's ambitious, charming, talkative, resourceful, private, frugal, and critical. Wow. So I looked that up because like I thought it would be interesting to see like what her signs actually meant. So that was kind of fun because I don't really study a lot of astrology, even Western astrology. But it was interesting to look into like the Japanese zodiac to see kind of the differences. So yeah.
That is really cool and so fitting.
Yeah, it is. So he actually like really, he must have done some research into the zodiac in order to kind of make her personality fit those elements, because a huge part of Sayori as a geisha is that she does form more emotional bonds. She's not only about the entertainment. That's a huge draw that a lot of men have to her, is that she has this whole emotional aspect and listening more than other geisha who tend to just kind of perform, you know? So I thought that was interesting.
That is so interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that is interesting because of the way like you know, that's like kind of what makes her stand out to Nobu as well, is that she's like actually listening to him, and she does make a connection with him, even though it's not exactly like the connection he would like. It is like a strong connection, and she does feel for him, which is why it's hard for her to like, you know, say no to him or anything. It's not just about like losing the security for her. It is about the relationship that she formed with him, and she thinks of him as a friend.
Agree. Yeah. I thought that was really interesting.
Yes. Yeah, that is so interesting. Now I want to like look up all of the characters' zodiac signs and all that stuff, because it's almost like an Enneagram, you know, but it's Japanese.
Yeah, I didn't mention what Hatsumomo's sign was. I'm curious, because that would be fun to look up. I didn't look at that. I should have looked at that before I did this, but oh well. Thanks,
that is a really good idea. Yes, we'll talk about the friendship.
Should have done more research
next.
I didn't do enough research.
No, that was really interesting. Thank you for that. I didn't even think about like, oh, let's look up the character zodiac signs. So that's like super fun. Yeah. So why don't we can jump in. We'll put this up here, but like no rush if we want to keep talking about the zodiac. So Chelsea says, I knew I was year of monkey, but I just looked it up, and apparently I am a water element as well. This is so interesting. Yes, that is. I didn't know there was 2.
I should have looked up my element. I didn't
either.
I'm year of the dragon, and my daughter is too, which is kind of funny.
Ooh, fancy.
I'm the same year as my mom too.
It's funny. The only reason I know that is from those like when you go to Chinese buffets and they had like they had like the placemats with like the different years. That's the only reason why I know what year I am.
Apparently, I am the year of the snake.
Oh.
I don't know what that means yet, but
Are you a Slytherin also? I wonder if that's tied.
no.
That's the first
I'm
thing I thought
a
of.
Ravenclaw.
I had Ravenclaw vibes off of you. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, no way she's Slytherin. I wouldn't believe it if you said
No,
it.
I didn't think she was either. That's just the first thing I thought of. Sorry, Stephanie, you're not Slytherin.
I am
bird,
year
a
of the
fellow
rooster.
dragon.
Nice.
I'm a chicken. Oh.
Hello, Brandon Zim. Brandon Zim. Yeah.
Excellent.
Welcome. Okay, so I'm Year of the Monkey, and it belongs to the water element. So
You and
cool.
Chelsea. are
Yeah.
together.
I'm a water chicken, according to.
Water chicken.
I love that.
That's
Ooh, I'm
amazing.
an earth. I'm an earth element.
Oh,
Oh.
Than all of you.
It says mine is Earth too.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
High five, Stephanie.
This is so fun. This reminds me of Avatar too. Have any of you guys watched
Yeah.
Avatar?
Oh yes.
Love Avatar. Okay, so I feel like understanding the zodiac a little bit is going to be really helpful anytime you're reading or consuming anything, probably from definitely China, but yeah, I wonder if Japanese things, manga and such, and I wonder about Korean stuff too.
So
Like,
The
I watch a lot of
Korean
K-dramas.
zodiac is similar too. Korean and Burmese
Interesting.
zodiac both tie off of Chinese zodiac as well.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
I found a page that it broke down all of them and how they were just like slightly different, but not super different. So Chinese, I think, might have been the first one, and then they kind of piggybacked off of, I think. Oh, Burn is a fire dragon. That's perfect.
Ooh.
Nice.
Those go together, it seems like.
Yes.
Ooh,
Ooh,
fire
a fire sheep.
Fire breathing sheep.
These images are so great. Oh,
They
man.
are.
Oh, that's so fun.
Rich.
Oh my
Water
goodness.
chicken. For sure.
Species.
If anybody has not read the Stormlight Archives, every bird is a chicken.
Oh.
That's what he's referencing.
I
I
haven't
got
read that
you.
yet. I need to start it soon.
That's hilarious. So that was funny on multiple levels.
Yes.
Yes.
Welcome, Rich. Thanks for coming.
That was a great intro.
Yes,
It was.
it was. So we have talked a little bit about the female character relationships with Pumpkin and Chio Sayori. I guess we'll just start referring to her as Sayori, because for most of the book she is Sayori. The beginning, she's Chio. So, anyways, what do you guys think about her relationships with other females? Because I could see that potentially being something that maybe bothers people, even though I personally wasn't like bothered by it. But the relationships definitely drive the story, and to me, they seem mostly competitive, with one exception.
Yeah, they didn't bother me as much, I think, as it would other people, just because I know it's a different culture and they have different values and
In a different time.
yeah,
Mhm.
and it's not our like Western 2021 values.
Right.
And there were a lot of, I think, social mores and stuff to keep in mind with all your relationships. So I thought it was interesting.
Yes. There's such a hierarchy in every relationship in this culture and time.
Yeah.
I feel
That's
like
a good
Sayori was kind of a loner, even though I don't think that was necessarily by choice. Even when you look at her and her sister at the very beginning, that's the first female relationship you really see. Her and her sister, like, I think I think they care about each other. At least
Yeah.
Sayori cares about her sister, but there's still like this like gap between them. It's not like a close knit relationship. Even with her mother, she talked about how much she loved her mother and cared about her mother, but there's a gap there too. And part of that is because her mother is sick. But I just feel like throughout the entire book, Sayori's pretty much a loner, not necessarily by choice, but that's just kind of how it worked out.
Mm-hmm. And with her mother dying at the beginning, I wonder if that's symbolic at all of like the chance of close relationships just like dying. But Sayori
there's
obviously
like an abandonment there, you know, like 'cause not only did her father like sell her, but then like both her parents died. She doesn't have communication with her sister. So there's definitely like an abandonment theme there.
Yeah. And a sense of like longing for better relationships. Like even like the way that she just like impulsively tries to leave with her sister, which is funny because like Mamiha was like, did you check your almanac for that before you just decided to up and run away? And she's like, no, but my sister did. And she's like, okay, well, let's look at your sister's. Let's look at yours. Okay, so your sister's was really good. Yours was, this is a terrible idea. So maybe next time, make sure to check your almanac. But even like the way that she impulsively tries to run after her sister and find her sister is completely fine just leaving her and escaping. But her sister isn't a geisha. Her sister is just like, you know, a prostitute. And who wouldn't want to like escape out of that as quickly as they possibly could? But it's still really disheartening that she wants that relationship and that relationship disappears. And then she wants a relationship with Pumpkin, but then Hatsumo adopts her as her little sister and she's not allowed to have a relationship at all. Like she's not even allowed to talk to her without Pumpkin getting severely hurt because she just decided to talk to her. And then of course Hatsumo is who Hatsumo is. And then Mother, the lady who runs the Dana, she only cares about one thing and one thing only, and that is money, and that is not Sayori. I think the aunt that's in the Dana, I think she builds a decent relationship with her. Like that woman even like protects her from worse beatings. But I think there's always this sense of longing, and I think that's why she clung on to the idea of the chairman so much, because of the fact that all of her relationships were just like completely out against her, and he was like the one person who actually like showed her unadulterated kindness for no reason other than he wanted to be kind to her.
Yeah.
That would be a big deal to someone who's really thirsting for any kind of intimacy or kindness, really.
Yeah.
So Berta thought that the Sayori Mamiha dynamic was the most interesting one. And honestly, it's at that point in the book, I think that my interest, like I was interested in the beginning because again, I've read this several times and watched the movie. So I'm fascinated by all of it. But I feel like when Mamiha comes in, that's when it stops feeling like you're just constantly getting hit, you know, over the head with like how sad everything is. Suddenly there's like some hope. So yeah, I definitely loved that relationship. And it was such a different relationship from all the rest. Not in the sense, I think there's some genuine fondness there, even though Mamiha is very much ruled by the cultural mores. She also, I think, is truly fond of Sayori and tries to really help her on a personal level as well.
Yeah. I love how good at social engineering Mamiha is. Like she is so good at like getting her way without seeming like she's forcing anyone to do anything. Like that whole like betting with Mother was just like so fascinating to watch because she's just so passive about it, and she says these little things and like clearly Mother's picking up on it, and like from an outside perspective I'm like, how are they coming to the conclusions that they are based on the words that are being said? But thankfully, like the narrator's able to give us enough of that context don't make sense, because otherwise I'm like, it sounds like they're just having a normal conversation right now, but turns out
Mamiha knew what she was doing all along.
yes.
Yeah. Mamiha does the moving. Sayori sometimes felt like she was kind of like a pawn in Mamiha's plan, but she also trusted Mamiha.
Yeah.
Even though Mamiha actually, it was her plans that ended up sort of moving her away from the chairman. But that again was because of Hatsumomo. So really, I guess Hatsumomo was the one that kind of formed that element of Sayori's fate. Because Mamiha was friends with the chairman and wanted to actually, like, I guess, help them. Do you think Mamiha wanted to help Sayori and the chairman get together? Did you get that sense, like, from her maneuverings at all? Or was she mostly just focused on making Sayori successful?
I feel like if she was trying to help, then why did she sit next to the chairman instead of letting Sayori sit next to the chairman in that sumo situation, like the first time they ever meet him? If she was really trying to help them set up, she would have sat next to Nobu and let Sayori sit next to the chairman. So I think that she had, I mean, I don't know. Again, this is why I guess like I can definitely see why some people were like blindsided by the ending, because it does like kind of not make sense with the actions that have lined up. Because like from Mamiha's perspective, having someone like Sayori that has such like a distinctive characteristic, I think would be like enough for her to like be successful and get money off of that. It didn't need, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's just my opinion. You guys can disagree.
I don't think that, at least in the beginning, that Mamiha like knew about Sayori and the chairman. Like, she obviously knew about the chairman because the chairman orchestrated all of this, but like she wouldn't have known that Sayori had feelings for the chairman, and I don't think she necessarily really knew that until the first point when Nobu's kind of trying to become her Dana, and she ends up becoming like the general's Dana instead. Mamiha helps like orchestrate that so she doesn't have to be like, Nobu doesn't have to be her Dana. But I don't know like at what point Mamiha realized that Sayori had feelings for the chairman also. So
can we just call out that it's weird that she'd rather be the person for the general than Nobu? Like, is it really that bad that he's missing an arm and has like scars, or like what? I don't understand why she wouldn't have like. I mean, I get that like she wanted
I do know
to
that
be with
one.
the chairman, but then being with the general is worse than being with Nobu, wouldn't it have been? Or I don't know.
I think she was thinking that if she was with Nobu, it would forever like cut off her chances of being with the chairman. So she's like looking really far ahead into her future, and being like, I'm not going to cut. This is the only reason why I exist as a geisha, is so that I can be with the chairman. So anything is better than cutting off that chance.
Yeah, I agree. Although I do agree with Mishi that Nobu would have been a far better Dana than the general on many levels.
Oh yeah.
Even in terms of like being taken care of, they thought that the general was going to be able to take care of them, and he just kind of like crapped out basically.
He did for a while,
but then he just kind of left, and Nobu was the one that came in and picked up the pieces. So on a short-term level, Nobu would have definitely been a better Dana, but she was going long game for that. She was looking for what would eventually help her to get closer to the chairman. So
do you have any thoughts on that, Stephanie?
Yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying. I just, she was thinking long term, not what was good in the moment, which I get.
Yeah. And I think going back to Mamiha, I really got the impression that in the beginning, she did not care about how Sayori felt about things. She was like, anytime Sayori like started talking about how she felt or like what mattered most to her, Mamiha was like stiff. Like, that's not what matters here. What matters is your success as a geisha. You don't become a geisha because you want to. It's like a last resort. You know, nobody has, you know, this isn't like a thing for fun. This is like a survival technique. And so, and I think that probably Mame has had to think like that throughout her life to survive being having her Dana, you know, I don't even remember what the Baron.
Yeah, the worst Dana ever.
The worst ever. So
at least he was rich. He was rolling in the dough. So at least,
yeah.
Did you guys feel like the relationship between Sayori and Mamiha changed after that whole scene with the Baron and Sayori? Because I feel like there was a little bit of distance between them after that because Mamiha kind of like, she knew that the Baron called Sayori there for a very specific reason. You know, and I think it even mentions that like when she came back, she felt like Mamiha was a little cold towards her afterwards because that was her Dana. But in the same respect, it wasn't Sayori's fault. And I think Mamiha recognized that.
right.
But still was like a difficult situation.
Well, and I think like from Mamiha's perspective, like by seeing that happen, I think she was starting to realize that like eventually her age is going to catch up to her and the Baron is going to move on because he's all about like the shiny new objects. I mean, like look at his home decoration. He always wants more of new and like prettier, and like that's like his ultimate character trait is that he's like obsessed with beautiful things or whatever. So I think more so than anything, not even having anything to do with Sayori, but having to do with Mamiha's security by like seeing that situation, knowing that Sayori would never do anything, but her security as his receiver of the payments.
I think that's exactly right. Isn't there an Enneagram number that's all about security?
Yes, there is.
6.
Yes.
I bet Mama has a 6.
She probably is, honestly, given like her actions. And
she's a planner, so that really goes together. Yeah.
Okay, so we had some great comments here. That would have been a great plot element. That would be so interesting.
I wish that had been in there too.
I'm not sure if she ever felt quite stable enough for that, because it does require like money and taking time out of your own stability. But maybe after Hatsumo was gone, there might have been like a short period when maybe she could have done that. But
I feel like it kind of like there's a lot about her training, and then when she actually is a geisha, we kind of like fly through like decades. And so I wish that there had been more of her actually like being a geisha, because I'm not sure the time period after Hatsumo leaving and then like the Dana, like the general being her Dana, I don't know how much time passed in between that. Was there enough time for her to have taken a little sister, or was that really, really fast and so she never was secure? Like I don't know.
Because the time of the war seemed to stretch out a really long time. So you're right. The time kind of like zoomed out at that point and then zoomed back in once the war started. So actually, let's talk about that section in the book, because Stephanie had a few thoughts to share with us. She did a little research on when the Great Depression hits Japan. I forget. Sayori had like a name for that period. I forget what it was called, but
was it the Showa Depression? Is that what she said?
I honestly don't remember. But is that what they called it?
Yeah. So the Great Depression in the U.S. was from, I think, 1929 to 1941, and it did have worldwide ramifications, but Japan had a couple recessions before then. And so there's the Showa Depression, which was 1930 to 1931, which was caused by the Great Depression. And a lot of it was because they were returning to the gold standard. And then they actually got out of their depression earlier than a lot of the rest of the world because they handled it differently. So they made the yen worth more in their exchange rate, or worth less, excuse me. So they were getting more money. But yeah, it had really bad ramifications for everyone, but they seemed to recover a lot faster because theirs only lasted like a year or two, and ours was 12 years.
Wow. That's so interesting. I wonder, like, Arthur Golden seemed to write in here that the Japanese were surprised at how friendly the American soldiers were, and like how they were kind of cooperating with the US businessmen and the takeover, and how their relations really weren't that bad, you know, and all this stuff. But it was like, is that realistic? Like, I don't know. So
yeah, and
that was interesting.
think they got more like when you exchange the dollar for the yen, I think they got more money. So they were probably able to contribute more to the economy.
Oh, that's so interesting. Thank you for looking that up. I really wasn't sure, like, is this the same Great Depression? Like,
I didn't know either.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that they recovered way faster.
Yeah, that really is. Do you guys have any thoughts on that period of time in the book?
You mean the chapter?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was interesting. I mean, that whole scene where she is like a slave, and she's like going through the different jobs in the silk. I don't know what you'd call it. Not a farm, but it's like I don't know. She went from like what did she do? She was like cleaning them, and then she was like dyeing them. And I feel like there was one other thing she did that she like really didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then
picking stuff.
Yeah, the flowers or
picking the flowers.
Yes, picking the ingredients for the dye.
Yeah, and then the dye like messed up her fingers.
Yeah,
mm-hmm. Nobu didn't like that.
Nobu, yeah.
Yes.
Or yeah, Nobu, yeah.
Yeah.
And we had some thoughts on Nobu in the.
So they went from so glamorous to who can protect us so we don't have to work in the factories.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I feel like so many of the geisha are victims of circumstance.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And maybe all of them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, probably all of them. Yeah. Oh, we will be talking about the ending for sure.
Berna already knows how I feel, apparently.
Yeah, right for the heart of it.
That is also very true. Like, I feel like so many people just underestimated Nobu and saw him kind of like Hatsumo did, which is a
Lizard
shame.
Man.
Yeah. He was so much more than that.
I think it was just like a reflection of how people looked at anyone who wasn't like attractive or like normal. They really like treated them either super special like they did with Sayori or like they did with Nobu. I think they were like two opposite sides of the coin, because they were both like super abnormal with their characteristics, like their physical characteristics. And like a lot of people actively avoided Nobu because of the way that he looked, because he was scarred from something that he had absolutely no control over, which was like, what wasn't it, a childhood? No, it was the war. It was from the First World War that he got hurt. It's just
nothing like showing some appreciation for a war hero, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah. Veterans don't seem to get the same level of just automatic respect unless they were really high ranking.
Yeah.
Rank seems to be a big deal.
Yeah. But I mean, he was kind of a jerk, so.
Yes. I know there was some controversy about Nobu in the chat. Like the guy that was reading with us, David Wiley, was like, "No, I feel so bad for Nobu. He was just awesome, and he was caring for Sayori, and then she just threw him away like trash." You know, like, well, yeah.
I was hoping David would be here so that we
I
could
know.
chat
I know,
with
me
us.
too. Yeah. No, that was a totally valid perspective. I think it's hard not to feel kind of bad for Nobu.
I think
My
that's part of the reason. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that's part of the reason that he behaved the way that he did was because of the way he had been treated. So I think he didn't let a whole lot of people in. He was very gruff and not nice to a lot of people because people were so cruel to him based on how he looked, and they valued him according to the way that he appeared. And Sayori was one of the few people that enjoyed his intellect, enjoyed his conversation. So, like, he liked the chairman and Sayori because they were, like, the only people who saw something in him other than his physical deformity.
Yeah.
Or wealth.
Yeah. I think Japanese culture really, it's almost like French culture in their appreciation of beauty. It's so extreme. Like it's almost like everything is an art form. And so geisha are like the highest art form almost, you know. They wear the best art on their bodies, and they move like they're just moving art. Or at least that's the ideal. So I can understand why Nobu wouldn't feel appreciated. I feel like sense of humor can overcome a lot of these things. And yeah, he just didn't seem to have that, unfortunately. Uh-oh. We lost Tiffany. We need her for the ending question. She sparked the firestorm. But we have Berna here, so Berna can also take this on. So, but before we get to talking about the end, which is it okay with you guys if we go a little bit over an hour, or do we need to stop at an hour?
That's
A little
fine.
over. Okay, cool. Oh, there she is. Sorry, Tiffany. There you are.
I don't know what happened. I'm having technical difficulties today. I don't know.
Okay. What should we talk about next? Hang on. We'll talk about the end, definitely.
Can I just also say, totally random, but I love that Sayori got to fly in an airplane for the first time.
Yes.
Yes.
And I take it for granted that I've done that multiple times, and to see it from somebody else's perspective, that it was this whole new thing, was just so cute.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and she gets like, she's uncomfortable with this. Which is understandable because airplanes were really dangerous when they were first a thing. Like, there were so many crashes. People just disappearing. Like, it was not a safe way to travel like it is today. Like, it's actually really safe today. Even though it's still kind of scary.
Yeah. Kind of ironic. I was actually listening to the audiobook while in the airport finishing the story.
Nice.
So getting to read about her flying while I'm like getting ready to get on the airplane.
That's so funny.
So in our chat, Hatsumo was another bit of a controversial character. And I think she's a fantastic villain. Like, so many zingers, and she's like always there and always scheming. She's such a schemer. But also like not very likable. So but Michi had a really interesting perspective looking into her psychology and kind of her background. And I think this is because Michi is just so well informed about psychology and also about writing characters, because she's a writer as well. So Michi, would you like to share your perspective on Hatsumo for us?
Oh my goodness. There's so much to say about Hatsumo. I feel like she's the most interesting character outside of the main character. And arguably she could even be more interesting than Sayori just because of how she is. I mean, she is very clever, which is very fascinating to watch. Like, just like Mamiha, she has like the ability to say these things that are so crushing in a way that no one else can realize the intentions behind it except the person that she's aiming it at. And maybe if you know that situation, like she she'll like come into tea houses and then just say these terrible things about Sayori and like implicate her as like doing like, you know, she kind of like tried to ruin her whole, what is it called when they sell her virginity? There's like a word for that.
The Mizuwage.
Mizuwage. Yes, Mizuwage. She like tried to ruin that for her and like almost succeeded, had like, you know, they not basically pleaded the doctor to believe her that she was still a virgin. She's like, please, you have, but like everyone was falling for Hatsumo. And I think a lot of that is like first her notoriety, right? She's like a very famous geisha. She like sold her Mitsuage for like a huge amount of money. She was super beautiful. Everyone thought she was the most beautiful. And I think like the second that Sayori walked into the geisha house, like Hatsumo was instantly intimidated. One, because she knows she's getting older, like she's already over 20 at that point. And this girl has blue eyes, which is incredibly unique. And something that helped Hatsumo stand out was the fact that she was so beautiful and unique. And to see someone else come in there, it must have been like very upsetting for her to have that. I mean, there's the reminder that like someone else is going to eventually replace her. And now she probably knows who it is. But she now has a chance to do something about it and potentially prevent that from happening. Obviously, she doesn't succeed. But I was also thinking about it too. I mean, I think it was Stephanie mentioned that they're all like, oh gosh, what was the word you used? They're like victims of the situation. That's not like the exact words, but you said something like that.
Yeah.
And I think Hatsumo is no exception. I mean, there's no mention of her being the child of a geisha, therefore she was likely sold into it just like everyone else. And just like the way that they beat kids for doing things bad, and
I know.
You just have to imagine Hatsumo went through a lot of the same things. And who knows, like if there was a geisha who treated Hatsumo terribly, which is actually highly, highly likely if she was as beautiful as she was written about. I mean, anyone would be intimidated because it's a very competitive world that they live in as a geisha. It's all about being the most beautiful and the most talented. And Hatsumo like kind of ruined her chances too by like trying to fall in love or accidentally falling in love. Who knows like how much intention was behind it. And then Sayori is the reason that relationship fell apart. And that even more so, I think like lit the flame beneath Hatsumo to like start really going on the offensive. And then pile on top of that Mamiha takes Sayori as a little sister. That had to have been like really just like the straw that broke the camel's back with her. And she's like, oh, well, then I will take Pumpkin and I'll just prove that I'm way better than you. And she just like, it's very, very aggressive. Like she's kind of aggressive, but not really, because it seems like she couldn't care that much, but she just doesn't like her. But after like she takes Pumpkin, she becomes incredibly aggressive in her attacks, like going out to like try to find Sayori everywhere that she is and like put Pumpkin there instead and like try to like take everything away from her and just like make Pumpkin super busy and super popular. And I mean, ultimately it fails because she is too hot-headed to like actually think things through like Mamiha. But I found Hatsumo to be so fascinating, like just such a fascinating character.
Did you type her at all?
You know what? I tried to. I feel like it's pretty clear that she has extroverted sensing as like her main cognitive function, which means she's either an ESFP or ESTP. Basically what that means is they're like very good at like acting in the moment, but maybe not that great about like thinking things through in a long term. And they tend to get stuck on like singular goals and struggle to like get off those singular goals. And I think that that's like a really clear characteristic of her. Now, if she's an ESFP or ESTP, I couldn't really figure out because I don't think we got enough time with her, but she could have been either. But definitely an ESP of some sort.
Following her life would have been really interesting too.
Yeah, I think that would have been more interesting, to be honest.
Such a tragedy though. Oh,
I
man.
know.
Hi, Graf. Thanks so much for coming. Hi. Love to hear your perspectives.
I think that just speaks to Arthur Golden's ability to write, that we were able to get that much out of it.
Yes, because she's a side.
Have such strong feelings toward her.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
You
all the
kinda, like, love
characters.
to hate her.
Yes. Oh man, I like any character. You just like say a name, and we're all like, "Yes, this thing about this person." It's like, yeah, such strong feelings. You did such a great job. I love this book so much. And thank you for that psychological evaluation.
Yeah,
that was great.
That was really interesting.
Thank you, Michi. Okay. Okay, so so we could talk about the differences between our culture and theirs, or I think that's the last thing before the ending discussion that I had prepared. I should have asked Michi to like type all the characters.
Oh.
That would have been a really fun question, but I didn't think of it until just now.
It's a great video idea, though.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Oh man.
I think
okay.
I think the main character's type was the most obvious, which is ISFJ. I think she's pretty clearly an ISFJ, which is interesting because she's pretty impulsive, even despite the fact that she's an ISFJ. But yeah, like you guys were talking about, like she thinks a lot about the future and like planning to get there. She maybe even was an INFJ. Actually, she might have been an INFJ. Now I need to think about it. Oh no. Now I've confused myself. Okay.
Hello, the Ginger Librarian. Yes, this will be available later right here on my channel. So I hope you enjoy the book. It's a wonderful book. We should just quickly write. Did we write it at the beginning? Okay.
No.
Do you guys? Well, we should probably rate it at the end, but maybe just for the Ginger Librarian, let's give a quick rating. Sorry to throw this question at you. I rated it 100% out of 100. Stephanie.
That is a surprise.
Yeah.
I rated it 4 out of 5.
Nice.
Like it had some flaws, but it was very, very enjoyable.
So I have a complicated system, but basically it turned out with an 8.8 out of 10.
Hey, nice. Okay.
I would say that mine was probably between a 3.5 or a 4 out of 4 stars because I love the writing, but the ending really brought it down for me. So
okay,
that really influenced my rating.
But still really good ratings.
It was. That's why I can't possibly give it any lower than that. I wouldn't dream of it because the writing was amazing and the character development was great. I just didn't love the ending.
It's kind of like a Hardy novel.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's so sad, but it's so beautiful that it's like I would read this any day. 4 stars for Penny. Yes, everybody in the chat, share your ratings. Okay. So there were certain parts of the culture that were like hot topics in the Voxer chat for this, because they were very different from American culture now, which American culture in the early 20th century was also very different from American culture now. But this is not only early 20th century, it's also Japan. So it's incredibly different from our own today. So there are some really shocking things that go on. A lot of them were related to female sexuality, which might be part of the controversy. I know there's some kind of controversy about this book and how Arthur Golden portrayed certain things, but I didn't research it in depth because I don't know. I'm gonna try and read the memoir, the actual memoirs, like the nonfiction ones, and maybe I'll understand better at that point. But yeah, so what were some of those things that were like really shocking for you, or maybe like nostalgic, like, oh man, I would reread this book again and again for this stuff, which is like how I feel about it, or really just beautiful, like Hardy.
Yeah, I kind of had an idea of what a geisha was, but I didn't realize how much went into it. and how, like you said, it's like a whole art form, which was totally different than what it probably would have been in America if they had something similar.
Yes. Yeah. Can you imagine geisha in America? Like anything like that?
No.
Is there any comparison to like in America, something like, I guess we have actresses, but I don't know.
Model.
And there was like the casting couch for actresses, so I don't know. In early Hollywood.
I think we're too like Puritan of a culture that like when we go across the line to that side of things, it's like such a it's just like seen culturally as somewhat like disgusting or like degrading, just as a Western culture. Anything to do with like selling your body, because it's like talked about in the Bible a lot, and America is built on the Christian religion. And so like I think that it wouldn't even be possible for there to be an equivalent in the American culture, just because of how we relate to the concept of sex in general as a culture.
Yeah, because other places in the world have legal prostitution now, and it's normal. But in America, I think it's just very black and white on that topic.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe it would be like, geisha would be like the high-end strip clubs. Yeah. Or like a really high-end stripper. Oh, like maybe like an escort would be the equivalent.
Ooh. Yeah, an escort probably would.
Or a Playboy bunny. Although these are all very sexual things. Like, not that a geisha isn't a sexual being. Like, she pretty much, her whole purpose is tempting people into just watching her all the time and watching her move and hearing her speak. And there's a lot of just like with the wrist thing, you know, showing her skin. There's a lot of sexual stuff, even if she's not like sleeping around or being paid for sex from anybody who's but some of the lower class geisha, that was their experience. If somebody was going to pay you, cool, you know, I need some money. So anyways, not to interrupt.
So, no, it's so much more than what you think initially. So it was very educational for me.
America does have strip clubs, yeah. I hadn't realized the art part of the depression. Yeah. In the paternal POV in service to husband and father. The same in some parts of Turkey. Interesting. That's really interesting. Berna, you're from Turkey, right, Berna? It's interesting. I would be so curious about international perspectives on stuff like this. Like, that would have been a good thing to dive into if I had thought of it. So I was surprised how open and accepted it was to be a dana or to have geishas at your event. There's a scene where the man's wife is greeting people and talked to Sayori. Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry, yeah, there was a scene where it's like the wife knows exactly, you know, where this woman is going. She didn't go because she was sick or something. Like, she said, oh yeah, she wasn't feeling well and she went home or something. But really, she's like in another part of the house where the woman's husband is going to be hanging out for the night. It's like, we don't really know how she feels about that, but it's part of the culture.
I think most danas were married men. You know, that's like something that is definitely a theme there. I mean, you see that with the chairman. It doesn't say that with Nobu, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone married him because of his status and money. But I thought something that was really like a shocking difference to me was that like basically the ending of the book was kind of like best case scenario. That was like a happy ending. And I'm like, so there was never like love, and getting married was like never part of the plan for a geisha. Like, that just didn't ever happen. Like, finding a dana was the goal. That's a happy ending. And if he's nice to you and you like him, then it's like ultra happy ending. It was like everything was more about provision, being provided for, and self-preservation was like the name of the game for geishas.
Yeah, I didn't realize how competitive it would be. Which makes sense, but I guess I came from it from the perspective of you're all kind of in this together and it can be hard. So it was more supportive. But then seeing this, it's like,
No.
Yeah. They, in a sense, at one point it said that Gion is kind of like that because if one geisha is very successful, it brings wealth to Gion and all of the geishas in Gion. So in that sense, it is cooperative, but also like also super competitive because if somebody is patronized by a man, then somebody else isn't, you know. So within the whole network, there is competition.
yeah.
But I guess you do want to support the successful geisha in your okiya because then you all do well.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's why everyone's like, don't step on Hatsumomo's toes because she's our moneymaker. So if something happens to her, then we're all in trouble, basically. There goes our food. There goes our kimono supply. There goes all of this stuff. So,
Yeah.
but then, like, if you want to rise in the ranks, good luck doing that when you have a very successful geisha already in your okiya because you don't want to step on her toes.
Bye. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
I want to like kind of follow up a little bit because we were talking about how geisha are looking for dana and not really like marriage, but they even mentioned a couple times that most of the marriages were arranged. So, and I think that's a lot of reason why so many men had the geisha is because they're in relationships that exist purely for, again, the sense of security. And those, I mean, it seems like women in general, whether geisha or not, kind of had the same place in society, which is like an accessory more than a human being. Like even the women were there married to these men for probably because they had dowries or something that like he would inherit from the parents or something to make it. Now I need to Google if any of that is even true.
There was a line in the book about how a man can't just abandon his wife to go with the geisha. There was like a metaphor that he used that was like, oh yeah, so on point. And also very sad. And it did mention that some geisha did retire and marry and like usually probably not stay in Gion. But I think that's not exactly common. Okay. Oh, sorry, people here. So we had some of the ratings earlier. So 4 stars for Penny. Graf gave it 5 stars. Bernie gave it 4.5 stars. Wage of Time Wanderer 4 out of 5 stars. Thank you, Chelsea. So a lot of us that were, almost everybody was like in the same plane. But I feel like, Tiffany, you said 3.5?
3.5 to 4. I can't decide where I finally landed. I'm kind of conflicted.
So we're all mostly within like the same point range. I rated 5 stars. But so interesting. Okay. Did you find any anything on Google, Michi?
No, but I found that it was legal until 1908 for men to kill their wife if they found them being adulterous, but they could have danas. I mean, they could have geishas, so they can have sex with whoever they feel like, but Lord forbid the woman does.
Yikes.
Really not that surprising.
It's
To
not, I mean,
well,
holy
just
crap.
the double standard, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I'm just like,
But yeah,
kill.
Yeah.
Kill?
I mean, in the Bible, they stoned women for doing that. So, I mean.
But they stoned the men too.
Oh,
like in
that's
Levitical law, both people.
Yeah, I guess
both
it's
people
true.
got killed. So at least that was.
At least it was.
If they actually
equal.
followed
Even.
it.
Egalitarian
I'm sure there's a lot of people
punishment.
who didn't. I'm sure there's a lot of people who didn't.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Yikes. I've heard too that like, like stoning children was part of the Levitical law. I haven't heard that. I've read that, but like that was more of like so the parents, it's not legal for you to do it. It has to be the society deciding to do it. So it was more of like a deterrent of murdering your child if they make you angry, rather than let's all get together and stone this child who is disobedient or whatever.
It was also that was based towards adult children, not child children.
Oh,
so that makes a difference.
That's good
too.
to
I'm
know.
not saying it's okay. I'm not saying it's okay, but no one was stoning 5-year-olds. That wasn't the case. These are adult
good to know.
children who are doing like horribly dishonorable things to their family because it was a big deal for families to all live together during the time period of like the Old Testament and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot more context to that a lot of people don't know.
Because if you just read the law, it's a little harsh. Yeah. Totally. Yikes. Okay, so the ending. Yay. This is running a little long. I hope that's okay for everybody.
That's fine.
If you need to bounce out, that's totally fine. So, but the ending. This is the question that Tiffany has been waiting for. No, I'm just kidding.
David's not here to back me up, though. Chelsea is.
Yes. Who was it? Berna too. Berna's here to back you up. So
yeah, that's right. Thanks, ladies.
So, what were you guys expecting? Because some readers expressed like severe disappointment to where it like ruined the book. Yeah. And then some people expressed satisfaction, and I love to hear these perspectives. So
it was Mishi.
Stephanie, do you want to? I can never get this.
Oh,
Stephanie,
weird.
would you?
I fell in the middle. So I expected it to not be so neatly packaged at the end because the rest of the story, there were so many different layers. And then I felt like the end, it was just like, okay, everyone's happy, we're done. But I also don't know what he could have done to be satisfying to me. Like, I don't know if I could tell you. But I didn't have as strong of a reaction either way.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're the only one who didn't have a very strong reaction. It seems
and I think, it just felt a little rushed and a little too neatly done because we just spent so much time just slow. It was a slow burn.
That's true. When the resolution happened, it was like real fast.
Yeah, it was like
we didn't linger over that at all. Yeah.
But I can also see why
it
would have stronger reactions from both sides, for sure.
Mm-hmm. I think with literary fiction, it's not very common to get like a happy, neat package at all. And I wouldn't exactly call this neat or happy for everybody. And unfortunately, there was, like we mentioned, Pumpkin. Wow, her life sucked,
Yeah.
And Mamiha, who is like at the top of the geisha pecking order, like she went through some really rough stuff as well.
Yeah.
So, and like she ends up in a little apartment above some shop and smelly and, gray, not beautiful at all. So it's not exactly a happy ending for most of the people. And even Sayori ends up having to leave what she loves, which was the point Tiffany made. I didn't even really think about that, but she ended up having to leave her career essentially, even though parts of it she enjoyed. So definitely some sadness in that ending. And of course, Nobu. So anyways, Michi.
This has to be pretty colored by having watched the movie a lot when I was in high school, which is when I was like the biggest like hopeless romantic. That was like that's definitely some context which caused me, I think, to have a stronger reaction because one, I already knew the ending of the book. I was more seeing how it happened in the book. And two, I had been rooting for the chairman the whole time because I was rooting for Sayori. And so I wanted her to have like what she wanted. Like I definitely was invested and like watching the movie as a kid. I was like, oh, this is like I didn't even think about the fact that she like met him when she was like 11 or 9 or something. Like, okay, let's just ignore the fact that she was a child when she fell in love with a 40-year-old man. And at the end of the book, he's like 70 and she's fallen. Okay, all right, whatever. Take that out. Now that I've realized those things, it kind of like takes it down a little bit. But I think I really like his little conversation at the end where he was talking about this example of this guy that he had contracted a lot of times and he really liked working with him, but he could never like bring himself to ask the guy to come work for him because he worked for another company that he had a really great working relationship with. And he uses this like example before he tells her, like, it's clear, like, he's like, you just quit your job, basically. You did what this guy did. And then it like becomes clear that like he just respected Nobu so much that he would never have gotten in the way. And then as soon as she ruined that situation with Nobu, like he had to keep her a secret, obviously. Like he can't go around like flaunting the fact that he's with this woman. But it did free her up and allow him to unabashedly go for her, I guess you would say. Which is something he wanted the whole time, which again, if you think about, is kind of creepy. But from a hopeless romantic side, it's pretty sweet. The ending does happen pretty quickly, but I think that it is pretty romantic how it ends. I don't know.
Yeah. I agree, but let's hear from Tiffany.
Unpopular opinion time. Okay, so the ending of this really bothered me because I felt like for Sayori to sleep with this guy, to make Nobu basically decide to cut ties with her, seemed very at odds with how she had behaved the entire book. She seemed like she always behaved with integrity and not wanting to hurt Nobu's feelings. In fact, they even had a conversation where he was like, you wouldn't just sleep with someone just because the person who's running your Okia told you to, would you? And she says no, because she doesn't want to hurt his feelings and sever the relationship. And so she has this whole attitude of not wanting to hurt him. And then even when they're on the island, they're swimming. And she said it was like the least clad she'd ever seen him. And she even thought about, man, if I go through with this, he's going to think it was because I saw him. And so he's going to think that I'm rejecting him because of the way that he looks. And she really like agonizes over that. But then she still goes through with it and makes the decision. And obviously then it's the chairman who stumbles on her and not Nobu. And I found also like his reaction to it to be kind of opposite to the integrity that he had showed, that he'd always deferred to Nobu. He'd always had this integrity thing going on, but he didn't have to tell Nobu what Sayori did. He never had to tell her that and totally like destroy that. But he did it because he wanted to be with Sayori, which seemed to go back on the story that he told her that Nishi was referencing, that he didn't want to take this from this person. So, like, I know that it was what Sayori wanted, and he realized that. But it just felt like everyone who, like, had any sort of integrity, then they're like, never mind, we like each other. Too bad. Who cares? Who gets hurt in the end? We don't care. Now we're all happy. And we were supposed to be like, yes. That's the way it should have ended. And that's just not how I felt. Like, and I did want Sayori to be happy. So it's not that it's not that I wanted her to have this horrible ending, or the chairman either. But I feel like it would have been better character development if like her relationship with Nobu had changed. Yeah. And that he ended up changing and being a better person because of her. And that she ended up falling for him, and then he was her Dana. Like, I feel like that would have been a better ending that I would have preferred. So, which is a very unpopular opinion. But those are my thoughts.
It does definitely feel like something a different character in the book would do, not Sayori.
Yeah, it kind of just felt like that was... I mean, it didn't come out of nowhere. It was an act of desperation. And we talked at length in our Voxer group, like, what else could she have done to have had the outcome she wanted? And I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. You know, like, I can't say, like, oh, yeah, she could have done this and had that same outcome, because I don't know that she could have. But it just seemed so out of character for her. So. Yeah.
Okay, and yes, thank you. Yeah.
Something, and that was really loud. I'm sorry. The spoon just fell for my tea. Anyway, I ended with a bang.
The mic has been dropped.
Mic drop. Yeah.
That's what I was going for. Spoon drop. Oh my god.
Okay, let's get to some of these comments too, because people shared their opinion.
Yeah, Penny did make it good. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, Penny did? Yeah, I'll go to that. Hang on, let me do graphs really quick. I wanted it all to work out because I had grown to care for her. If all had gone south, then I would have understood that ending. That it turned out well for her. Made me happy. Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. I think now, thinking about it, if I had never seen the movie during that period of time when I was like the most hopeless romantic, because nowadays I don't actually like romance that much in my books as an adult, where I did when I was in high school. I wonder if like the nostalgic element hadn't been there, if I would have felt more similarly about the ending, because like when I think about it from a backed up perspective, I think it would have been a stronger ending for her to end up with Nobu and to accept him as he was. It's kind of like selfish of her that she never accepted him the way that he was, because he had done nothing but like prove that he cared about her over and over and over and over and over again. And yeah, he was a little blunt, he was a little rude sometimes, but like he saved her life when the war happened and he got her that job, and then he brought her out of that as soon as he possibly could. And, she just gave him the middle finger, basically.
Yeah. And he cared about her as a person.
Yeah.
Everyone else who liked her as a geisha was because she was beautiful and she had these unique eyes. Like, he enjoyed conversation with her. He liked her as a human being, not just as this lovely status figure,
Yeah. Honestly, I probably could have done without the romance. Like, I know it's kind of a plot point, but I just didn't really care that much who she ended up with. But that's a me thing. That's not the book's fault. I think I would have been okay with friendship too.
Mm-hmm.
Just
sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to follow up that if she had stayed with Nobu, she would have seen the chairman a bajillion more times still. She just wouldn't be having sex with him.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
A man who's literally 30 years older than her. Whatever. I guess Nobu's probably the same age difference, but whatever.
Probably.
It just wasn't pointed out as much with them.
Is Chelsea in here still? Because Chelsea said stuff in the Voxer group where she talked about how she wished it had ended differently, that like Sayori ended up with her own Okia and like had more agency and could actually choose what she wanted to do with her life, because even with the chairman, even though that was what she said she wanted, like she still had to stop being a geisha. She had to leave Gion. She had to move to a completely new country, so there was no longer an issue with the son that she had with the chairman, like being an heir to his company or whatever. It was just kind of a weird thing that like, she never ended up with still actually really being able to choose all that much. Chelsea.
I think like
there you are. I loved her thoughts on it. It changed my thoughts, what she said.
So like Michi mentioned that Sayori might have been an ISFJ. As an ISFJ, the most important thing to me is my relationships for sure, and my relationship with my husband for sure is like the number one like human on earth thing. So I could totally understand why she would be just thirsting to be around somebody who is kind, who has been kind to her since before she was a geisha, before she could offer anything to him. I think part of the reason why she fell in love with the chairman was because, he fell in love with her honesty right from the beginning, whereas the rest of Japan at this time, especially the women, you don't really show how you feel. There's no like genuine expression of emotion. It's impolite to do so. So the fact that she was just like so broken and like, I'm just going to go and sit by the river and cry. Like to him, that was like, I guess something that he was attracted to. And like Berna was saying, it's kind of weird that he was like in love with her. I don't know if he was in love with her as a child, she was like a beautiful child, but
yeah, Penny in the comment, she said he did say in the book if he loved Sayori from when she was young versus wanting to take care of her as a substitute father or friend. And then when she was an adult, he started loving her.
So when she's actually on the geisha scene.
That makes it a little less creepy for me.
Yeah.
A little
bit.
At least he's not like the doctor who specifically only likes the youngest, most childlike. Like they even made her act more childlike around him to get him interested in her. And then he has this like wall of jars filled with like bloody rags. I'm like, ew.
That was so gross.
Uncomfortable scene of the whole book, I think.
I'm so glad they cut that from the movie. That would have been too much. I think it was too much in the book, but I mean, I guess there must have been people like that.
I mean, yeah.
I guess. I don't want to think about that.
There's kind of a market for everything, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, I love that actor. He's like, he just seems so gentle and kind. Like, I know that's not always the character he plays, but.
Do we ever find out what the chairman's name is? Because if she's in love with him and she never even knows his name, isn't that a little weird too?
She just calls him the chairman the rest of her life.
Yeah.
Chairman.
Chairman?
Just wondering.
Oh my gosh. Berna agrees with you, Tiffany.
Thanks, Berna. I'm not alone.
Oh, he does have a name.
Oh?
He does?
Referred simply as the chairman for most of the novel, Ken Iwamura.
Oh.
The gentle, dignified, and kind love interest of Sayori.
Interesting.
I'll pop this in chat for everyone.
Thank
I
you.
didn't remember seeing that.
I don't remember either. Isn't that funny? The actor's name is also Ken.
That is funny.
And that's a very American name.
Yeah, it is.
Ken.
So I like this point from Penny because in any other situation, I feel like we would never be trying to dictate to a character, you should be loving this person and sleeping with this person, and this is how you should feel. Like, that was something that she had to deal with her entire life, what she would do with her physical body. And so I was really extremely happy for her that she was not forced again into sexual slavery, and that she got to follow her heart. That was such a big deal. Like, it's not something that women got in her situation very often. And I thought it was great that she, I mean, pretty much this, I'm looking at this obviously not with Western morality, because this is not anything to do with Western morality. I doubt she would ever really came into contact with Western morality in a meaningful way. She, from a child, grew up with a different mentality entirely. So I think when she starts, I don't think it has anything to do with, I don't think her actions at the end, when she finally decides I'm going to take control of my destiny again, which she didn't do for a long time because it ended so disastrously when she first tried that as a child and tried to run away with her sister. She just didn't try that again for a really long time. But at the end, she realized she was going to lose the only person who was kind to her when she gave him nothing in return. Like, she said at one point that Nobu, if he had seen her on the banks of the river, wouldn't have given her a second glance. It was only once she was a geisha and had all these geisha charms that he actually fell in love with her. And I understand it was her conversation that he fell in love with. But, like, they weren't really talking about actual feelings and things that really mattered to Sayori. She was still very much playing the game. And they were friends, but she just never felt that same level of interest in herself as a person with Nobu as she did from the chairman. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I like really respect this in this book, what Penny said, because I just feel like it would be so wrong to try and dictate to her what was right and how she went about getting it. Because again, her morality is not Western at all. So when she uses sex to get what she wants, like, that's pretty much what her whole life has been about. That's what she's been trained for. to use sex to attain security. But at this point, she's saying, I'm willing to risk my security in order to find true love, which I actually think is a good thing in her character. Like, I admire her for that, even though her methods seem like distasteful, obviously. It's nothing new for her, unfortunately. She's experienced so much trauma in her life that I just really was like, just more of the same for her. And obviously, she was horrified when the chairman saw her, but the act itself wasn't probably worse than what happened with her Danna for years. So, yeah.
Here's the other thing I'm wondering. If Pumpkin had brought Nobu, would Nobu have not said something to the chairman? The chairman knew Nobu wanted to be her Danna. So wouldn't he have said something to the chairman? And then, like, how would the chairman have reacted to that? You know, like, he still would have found out, you know? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
That didn't make much sense to me either. That I was like, okay, but you're doing this so Nobu won't want to be your Danna, but then the chairman's still going to find out. And how do you think he's going to react to this? You know?
Possibly.
I don't know. I feel like it would have come up, but maybe they didn't talk about that kind of stuff, but the chairman was well aware that Nobu wanted to be her Danna, so... I don't know.
Maybe in her mind, that was better than being with Nobu.
Yeah.
Like not having the chairman versus having to be with Nobu.
I don't know.
And then the other thing too is, even though Nobu took care of her, I thought it was always for selfish reasons. It was because he wanted to be her Danna, and he was scheming her life around just the way Mamiha was. And when she did something that offended him that actually wasn't even her choice, which was picking a different Danna instead of him before the war, he blamed her so much for that she didn't see him for like 9 years, I don't know, something like that. So I guess that there was some time in there, several years in there, where she could have taken on an apprentice. But so I just felt like, if you were a real friend, would you actually do that? Like, just no word from you for a gazillion years. And then also, he wasn't able to forgive her for anything. Like, I feel like the ending was kind of like a setup to where she was broken and very contrite about what had happened when the chairman saw her. And Nobu could have come to her and been like, I understand your situation was so hard, but he never had the empathy to do that. He always was like, he only wanted what he wanted and wanted it from her. So he had no real respect for her choices.
I think part of that may be cultural too, because at least just what I know, it's how do I word it? Like an honor thing. Like, he was ashamed or dishonored by that, and that was not forgivable.
That could be.
Yeah.
I also wonder too, and this is definitely my Western lens talking. This is not cultural at all. But like, if you really cared about someone and you wanted to forge a relationship with them as a Danna or whatever, and then they just totally choose someone else, would you want to talk to that person? And then they sleep with someone else to get rid of you so you won't be their Danna? Wouldn't you be under the impression that they don't want to talk to you and they don't want you in their life anymore? You know, because that's kind of how I would feel. I would feel betrayed. I would feel like, well, you obviously don't want me in your life if you're pushing me out and you're only accepting my help when you're in dire straits. And then when you're not, you're going to go sleep with someone so I can't be your Danna to try to drive me away. I feel like that communicated a different message. And I'm not saying that it's cool for Nobu to not talk to her and to be like so bitter about it, because it wasn't. But I'm just wondering if that was part of the reason why. Because if it seems like every time someone gets provision from me, but then when I want to take it a step further, they push me away, I'd be like, okay, guess you don't really want to be with me anyway, so why would I talk to you?
She didn't want to sleep with him, but she wanted to be friends.
I know, but she had no problem accepting help from him when she was in dire straits and letting him think that she was going to let him be her Danna, so that way he would provide for her. She had no problem letting him believe that until it got to the point where it was really going to happen. and then she put an end to it. So I was kind of like, ah.
So Graf was saying you're like right on point with saving face. So it's definitely a cultural thing.
And yeah.
And then Berna says Chelsea's ending would be a dream end. That really would have been a different ending. It definitely would have given her agency. And then,
but I like that the ending, there could be so many possibilities that could have happened.
Yeah, you didn't know how it was fully going to end, you know?
Yeah, and I could see how it would end different ways easily. So, again, a sign of great writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And I feel like we really did get a glimpse into something very different from our ordinary experience, which is something that's cool about historical fiction. It's almost like fantasy, but it's real.
Yes.
He had enough. Yeah, that's definitely true. His life was not exactly happy. And just when Sayori played games, he really didn't like that. He was like, no games. We want
He was tired
here.
of being played. He was tired of being played.
Yeah.
Even if that's not what she was trying to do. I think he perceived it that way, even though I don't think that was her intention. But same thing with Pumpkin, where Pumpkin basically felt like she was being used by Sayori, when Sayori was really just trying to be her friend, but it looked to Pumpkin like she was only using her. I could see how Pumpkin would think that, but I don't think that was Sayori's intention.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Oh, man. Okay, so this ending, wow, so much to discuss. This was great. Oh, sorry, Michi, I just saw your private message. So, yes, we should probably let everybody go. This was such a great discussion. I think all of these characters, wow, really, I think all of them were just so complex characters, and we fell in love with them. And so much else about this book. So thank you to everybody who came and chatted with us. Thank you to everybody here who came in and helped me make this broadcast so fun.
Yes, thank you for having us. It's fun.
Yes.
Of course. It's like a book club discussion. I love it.
It is.
Yes.
Okay. We don't let people go now. I do have to go shopping. So thank you again for coming, everyone.
Bye, everyone. It was
Bye.